Hey guys, welcome back on the channel. Today we are focusing on the main points you should consider when choosing a liquidity pool. Maybe you came across this highly profitable way of generating passive income in DeFi, and while that is true, you don't want to put $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 into a liquidity pool just because you think it's paying high APRs. So if you are considering to start your DeFi journey by providing liquidity, this is the video for you. We're gonna cover the main points. I came up with 7 of them that will help you to select the best pool for your goals. So before getting started, let me just mention quickly here that we'll be using Metrix Finance for today's video. I am affiliated with them, but you don't need to buy the full version. Actually, you can use the free version to find yourself some liquidity pools, and they do offer quite a lot of value even on their free version. When you're getting started, you actually don't need to pay for any tool. You just need to focus on learning more of your trade, and if that's the point where you are at, I think this video will be very helpful to you. So let's get started. Now, first and foremost, Metrix shows you here a ton of exchanges. They're not all of the exchanges out there, but they're definitely big players across a number of different blockchains. And you want to do that. You want to stick with reputable entities. And all the ones you see here, Uniswap, QuickSwap, PancakeSwap, Sushi, Orca, Radium, Velodrome, and Aerodrome, they are some of the biggest names on the game. So remember that, stick with reputable entities because after all, you want to associate yourself with those types of protocols and not some other new ones that we don't really know anything about. And by the way, if you're interested about yield farming, providing liquidity and all of that, refer to the description. I will leave related content on the topic so you can get more knowledge on it. Now, even before you select a liquidity pair, you'll have to decide on which network, which blockchain will you be providing liquidity on. And optimally, you want to have your whole portfolio spread out through different blockchains. The more the better in order to diversify. But the main reason I'm sharing this with you is because different blockchains will have different gas costs. For example, Ethereum has the higher gas cost in fees, and you will be paying fees whenever you interact with the liquidity pool. When you deposit, when you rebalance, when you withdraw liquidity, when you add liquidity, even when you claim your fees, you will be paying gas. And in the case of Ethereum, that can be from up to $100, sometimes even more in times when the network is highly congested. For that reason, as a complete beginner, I would highly advise you to go with, for example, Arbitrum, OP, Polygon, Base, BNB even, AVAX, Celo. These are all blockchains among many others, which I myself consider them to be low cost because you'll pay cents, if not fractions of cents, for every transaction on chain. And you need to account for fees as a cost for providing liquidity because overall that's something that it's going out of your pocket. You'll have to pay for that in order to run your liquidity pools. So keep that in mind. Gas fees are a cost. You want to avoid Ethereum at least in the start where likely you'll make some mistakes here and there, and you don't want to make those mistakes to be highly costly, right? So after a while, when you are already comfortable with all the mechanisms behind providing liquidity, then yeah, start exploring Ethereum. They have quite good liquidity pools also on there. They're a high volume blockchain, so you'll get a ton of rewards as well. And now that you understand all of this, the first point I want to share with you is choosing a pair and correlation. Although there's a ton of pools you can provide liquidity to, when it comes to selecting the best ones, I think it's fairly simple to just sort through all of the noise out there because there's hundreds if not thousands of liquidity pairs. But you definitely want to stick with either blue chip assets, which are pairs that have, for example, Ethereum paired with Bitcoin. You see here wrapped Ethereum paired with wrapped Bitcoin, or wrapped Ethereum paired with a stablecoin. And these pairs can take a lot of shapes, of course, depending on the chain which you are on. For example, on Ethereum, Bitcoin paired with Ethereum would be a good one. On Arbitrum, Arbitrum paired with Ethereum would also be a good one, or also Arbitrum paired with other blue chip asset, BNB, Bitcoin. But of course, you want to go with the most correlated pairs, and correlation is a tool you can use DeFi Llama to help you with that. in order to find the best correlated pools, simply because these are the ones that will protect you the most against impermanent loss, which is definitely one of the biggest risks you will face when providing liquidity. But although you'll be more protected against impermanent loss, it's highly likely that at some point in time, even with blue chip pairs, you will face impermanent loss. Basically, will always depend on how the market is behaving. But if you want to avoid that, you can also go with stablecoin pairs. These are pairs that have high price stability, but also do provide lower potential returns when compared with other pairs such as the ones I mentioned before. Just have in mind that although it's extremely rare, a stablecoin can also depeg, and you have to account in that for your risk. But overall, if everything goes well, you can expect very promising returns in stablecoins, let's say across a year. You can get up to 50 or even 60% return on your initial just by providing liquidity to stablecoin pairs. So summing up, your best options would be blue chip pairs or stablecoin pairs. Ideally, you want to diversify into both across multiple chains and across different DEXs even. And by the way, if there's something you need further clarification, drop a comment down below and I'll get back to you. Now let's move on to the next point, which is liquidity. You want to choose pairs that have deep liquidity. For example, right now we're looking at Uniswap v3 on the base chain, and the biggest liquidity pool here will have Ethereum paired with Pepe. And Pepe is a meme coin, which is not the type of pools that you want to look at. So the second one here, a stable coin paired with a blue chip asset wrapped in Ethereum, this is a very good liquidity pool. Look at the TVL, almost $19 million. This would be a very reliable pool for anyone to provide liquidity actually. But you can of course choose others that have lower TVL, start with something like $500,000 or $1 million as a base and go from there on. That will definitely help you to filter a lot of the more riskier pools out there, which are mainly meme coin pools or other lower market cap pools. So liquidity is a very important factor. And not only because of that, but also deep liquidity means that the pool can handle more volume, more number of trades, and that means more profits to you because volume, as we will see later, it's a key factor when considering the potential profits of a pool. And volume actually is the third point I want to share with you. The higher the volume, the better, and you'll have to consider a volume to TVL ratio. For example, this USDC Ethereum pool, they have over $39 million in volume for the past day. And in this case, the volume to TVL ratio is over 2x. You can see it here, the volume to TVL ratio is over 210%, and the higher the better. Although when considering blue chip assets pools, for example, Bitcoin paired with Ethereum, I would be already very happy if it would have a volume to TVL ratio of 100%, a 1-to-1 ratio, or even below that. Sometimes it can be very profitable because after all, we're looking at blue chips, and when providing liquidity, I always like to remind you, we're playing the long-term game if you are sticking with these more reliable pools. And now let's touch on the next point, which is the pool's fees. We'll stick here with this same pool because I don't want to jump around the place, because all the information I'm sharing here, you can apply then when you're doing your research to any given pool. So when you're looking at the pool's fees, you want to look at this number here after the token pairs that do make for the pool. So in this case, it's 0.05%. That means that any trade that uses this pool, the volume going in will have to pay 0.05% in fees, and those fees will pay for liquidity providers. Usually, pools that have riskier pairs will have a higher fee range. For example, you see here BRAT paired with wrapped Ethereum is 1%, and that's because it's necessary to incentivize liquidity providers due to the risk of having a meme coin paired with Ethereum. But also you will find likely a lot of pools that have blue chip assets in it, and the fee here will be 0.3%, 0.5%, or 1% even. And the main difference between those pools is that they won't need as high of a volume because the fees they are charging are already quite substantial. So if we would be considering the same pool, USDC paired with wrapped Ethereum, but with 1% fee range, so Potentially with a lower volume, they would pay the same, if not more. But if you are in doubt about a couple of pools, let's say they have the same pair, the same fee range, the same liquidity, then yes, the volume would be the joker, so to say. It would be the main aspect that would make the difference when it comes to showing which pool would be the one performing the best. Now let's move on to the next point, which is setting liquidity ranges and backtesting. For that, we'll click here on the simulate button because it will allow us to backtest, which is essential. Now Metrix gives you a lot of information that helps you when backtesting. And backtesting is just a fancy word for setting ranges according to how the price has performed in the past. Here on this chart, you can see how the price has been behaving for the past month. You can use the calculation range in days to go all the way down back to one whole year worth of time to backtest with. And then you can apply this slider here to just adjust your bottom and top ranges. You can see that as you slide, it adjusts in real time on the chart, and you can easily snuggle in all the price fluctuations for the past month. And this would be the end result of backtesting with all the price fluctuations. Now also do note that Metrix gives you a ton of valuable info here, the minimum price that Ethereum has achieved for this past time frame, the current price, the average price within this current time frame, and also the max price. Overall, I think it's a very complete tool. Now you can also go up here and simulate your position. For example, with the deposit amount of $1,000 and with the range that we just set, you see that the estimated fees for the next 24 hours will be $1.50. Of course, you can always play with that. If you're not happy with how much you are getting, you can go narrower or wider. Both strategies will have their pros and cons. Wider earns you less fees, but leaves you more leeway to respond to market volatility. So you will not go out of range as often as you would with a more narrow range. And let's adjust that so that you can see how in practice everything goes. So let's set up the range to be a little bit tighter. You just see we dropped a little bit of our top extremity of the current range, and now we will be earning more. You see the estimated fees just went up to $2.74. The same is also true for when you decide to go with a wider range. If you adjust that, you will be again more protected against potential market volatility, but now you see that your estimated fees just dropped to roughly $1, and this is always considering the same initial deposit amount of $1,000. You can also backtest further to a whole year if you slide here the calculation range up to the maximum. You see it goes all the way up to 365 days. So that's a whole year of backtesting worth of information you can get, again, with the free version of Metrix. Now that you know this, let me just add up that I do see very often beginners starting with narrower ranges, but I personally experience to have better results when I go wider versus narrower. So do not let those APRs fool you, because in high market volatility, you will be bouncing out of range very often. And although the APR will be higher, you will not earn as much as you would with the wider range, because the wider range will be generating you fees for the most part of the day. So knowing all of this, apply to your strategy, set the perfect range for your goals, and also you know how you can backtest and why you should do it. Now let's take a look at liquidity distribution. And by the way, the range that we just set before, it's now actually showing here on liquidity distribution. So whenever you move your ranges, it will also update here on the liquidity distribution chart. When it comes to this, you want to pay attention to peaks and valleys. Peaks are just areas where there's a lot of liquidity concentrated. Usually it's going to be around the current price. You see the red line, it's showing us the current price. And naturally there's a lot of liquidity being deposited not only on top of it, but also immediately around it. So that's what I call peaks. You'll have a lot of competition. This will definitely influence your APR. You'll get a lower APR in these areas. But then there will be other areas where there's not as much competition. Those are the ones that I call valleys. And you can set up your range to be accounting for that. So if the market makes the price move to a spot where it's currently a valley, the people already depositing liquidity there, they will earn the higher APR until the market adjusts at least, because other liquidity providers, they will follow the price and readjust, open new positions, rebalance in order to start generating fees on top of the current price. But it's like the saying goes, the early bird gets the worm, and while the market does not readjust, the people who are already providing liquidity to those so-called valleys, they will not face as much competition and their APRs will skyrocket. Even if only for a couple hours, that can make a lot of difference. So liquidity distribution is an aspect that sometimes might be overlooked, but if you want to be a professional liquidity provider, you gotta know all the tricks of the trade, and this is one of them for sure. Now let's move on to the last point, which is automation. Potentially you can use other tools such as Crystal, Aperture. Those are just a couple tools that you can use to automate your position. Again, if you want to see how to set up your ranges automatically, refer to the description. I have videos about it. And if you go with automation, basically you'll have to set a new range for whenever the price goes out of your current one. And you'll need to also set a time trigger so that when the price goes out of your range for a specific amount of hours, then yes, your position will be rebalanced and adjusted to a new range. And just follow the same advice I just gave you. Don't set a very tight range when rebalancing, and also if you're just getting started, make the trigger to be 24 hours, 36 hours, or even 48 hours. The chances are that in that time the price will bounce back into your range more often than not. One of the biggest and more common mistakes I do see beginners do is setting up very tight ranges with very low time frames to be triggered. And in very volatile market conditions, which means when the price is constantly going up and down, you will be definitely locking in a ton of impermanent loss. And not only that, since the market is super volatile, you will not be in range for enough time to make up for the impermanent loss. So what you will be generating in fees will definitely be less than what you are potentially losing from impermanent loss. And if that's the case, you can easily lose a couple $100 in one day or a couple of days. Again, I cannot stress this enough. Don't get greedy. Go with wider ranges. Go with longer time frames to trigger your rebalance of the position. And in the future, as you get more experienced, you can start to play with these things more and adjust more to your liking. So guys, I hope you took value from this video. Definitely give it a shot at using Metrix to find the best liquidity pools. If there's any questions you might have, let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe if you took some value from this video. Thank you for watching. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one.